It started with what sounded like a joke, a few laughs, a live stream, one line about money that was never supposed to go this far. But within hours, that joke turned into a full-blown internet war, with 3 names on one side and one furious voice on the other. Because when Blueface and Rich the Kid joked that Soulja Boy couldn't afford child support, they weren't just trolling, they were questioning his power, his status, and his legacy. And Soulja Boy took that personally. What followed wasn't a rap beef, it wasn't about music, and it definitely wasn't just entertainment. It was about pride, money, old favors, and the past that someone didn't want dragged back into the light. And once Soulja Boy went live, there was no taking it back. Because according to him, this wasn't 2 people talking, this was 3 versus 1. And that's where everything spiraled out of control. It didn't start with yelling, it didn't start with threats, it started at a party. Blueface was live, surrounded by people, cameras rolling, the mood light and chaotic. Rich, the Kid was there, DDG was there, everyone was laughing, talking over each other, enjoying the moment. Then the conversation shifted. Someone brought up Soulja Boy's name, and suddenly the jokes weren't harmless anymore. Blueface leaned into it, saying he was just trying to help by getting money together for Soulja Boy's baby mama. Rich, the Kid, laughed along. DDG didn't shut it down. The room treated it like content. Something funny, something viral, but that's the part they didn't realize. In hip-hop, you can joke about a lot of things, but questioning a man's money, questioning whether he can take care of his own child, that's not a joke. That's a challenge. And even though they played it off like entertainment, the message was clear. You're broke, you've fallen off, we're laughing at you. To them, it was a moment on a live stream. To Soulja Boy, it was disrespect broadcasted to the entire internet. And once that clip started spreading, it was only a matter of time before he saw it. Because when someone laughs at your money in public, the response is never quiet. And Soulja Boy was already waking up angry. Soulja Boy didn't plan a response. There was no rollout, no calculated statement, no publicist involved. He woke up, checked his phone, and everything changed. The clip was already everywhere. Blueface laughing, Rich the Kid joking, DDG in the background. To the internet, it looked like content. To Soulja Boy, it felt like an ambush. The first thing he made clear was simple. This wasn't one person talking. In his mind, this was 3 people teaming up, all at once. Blueface, Rich, the Kid, DDG, 3 names, 1 target. And the more he talked, the angrier he got. He wasn't responding to the joke anymore. He was responding to what it represented. Being laughed at, being reduced to a punchline, being spoken about like someone who no longer mattered. That's when his tone shifted. This wasn't about child support. This was about respect. He reminded everyone where he was, Atlanta, and made it clear he wasn't hiding. He accused them of clout chasing, saying they needed his name to stay relevant, and once that door opened, he didn't slow down, because when Soulja Boy felt cornered, he didn't explain himself, he attacked. And the next thing he brought up would turn the entire situation personal and a lot uglier. This is where everything stopped being a joke, because Soulja Boy didn't just clap back, he reached into the past. Right in the middle of his rant, he shifted his focus to Rich the Kid and dropped the line that changed the entire narrative. According to Soulja, there was a time when Rich the Kid wasn't laughing, a time when things weren't glamorous, a time when, as he claimed, Rich, along with his baby mama, had nowhere to go. And that's when Soulja said it. He claimed Rich the Kid used to sleep on his couch. In hip-hop, that accusation hits different. It's not just about money, it's about hierarchy. It's about saying, I was up when you were down. It's about positioning yourself as the one who helped while the other person benefited and forgot. Soulja doubled down, repeating the claim again and again, making sure everyone heard it. To him, this wasn't gossip, it was proof. Proof that the jokes coming from Rich felt fake. Proof that the laughter was coming from someone who, in his words, hadn't always been in a position to laugh. And the more he talked, the clearer it became. This wasn't just anger, this was resentment. Resentment over favors he believed he did. Resentment over respect he felt he never got back. Resentment over watching people rewrite history while calling him broke. And once that accusation was out in the open, there was no way to pull it back. Because now, this wasn't about a live stream anymore. It was about who really came from nothing and who owed who. By this point, Soulja Boy wasn't just talking to Rich the Kid anymore. He widened the frame. Now it was Blueface. Now it was DDG. Now it was everyone who laughed and didn't step in. Over and over, Soulja repeated the same idea. This wasn't random. This wasn't accidental. This was 3 people piling on one name all at the same time. And that's where the psychology of it changed. To Soulja Boy, this wasn't internet banter. It was a setup. 3 younger voices, 1 older name, and an audience watching to see him react. In his mind, they weren't joking. They were testing how far they could go. That's when he started bringing up old dynamics. He claimed DDG once begged him for a YouTube collaboration. He dismissed him as someone who needed his platform to grow. The tone was clear: you were never my equal. The same thing happened with Blueface. Soulja didn't just insult him, he stripped him of credibility, questioning his image, his background, and his place in the culture. This wasn't trash talk, this was Soulja trying to re-establish a hierarchy. And the more he spoke, the more intense it became. He wasn't defending himself anymore, he was attacking preemptively, trying to remind everyone who he believed had power first. Because being laughed at by one person is disrespect, but being laughed at by three? That feels like a takeover attempt. And Soulja Boy wasn't about to let that slide. This is where Soulja Boy stopped hinting and started accusing. His focus locked onto Blueface and the tone shifted from angry to ruthless. According to Soulja, this wasn't just talk. He claimed Blueface was broke. He claimed he was losing everything. And then he went even further, saying Blueface had been forced to sell his house just to stay afloat. But that wasn't the part that shocked people. Soulja claimed he controlled Blueface's music money. He said the royalties didn't go to Blueface anymore, that the checks were coming to him instead. He even named songs, insisting that the money was his now, not Blueface's. At that point, the rant wasn't just emotional, it sounded like a power move. Whether the claims were exaggerated, misunderstood, or flat out false didn't matter in the moment. What mattered was how confidently Soulja said it. He spoke like someone trying to publicly strip another man of his status, and he didn't stop there. He mocked Blueface's image, questioned his credibility, and laughed at the idea that he was ever taken seriously. To Soulja, Blueface wasn't a threat, he was an example. An example of what happens, in his words, when you disrespect the wrong person and then fall on hard times. But here's the key part. Even while making these claims, Soulja kept repeating one thing: just pay the money. That's what made people pause, because suddenly, this didn't sound like random rage anymore. It sounded like someone who felt owed. Not just respect, but something tangible. And once money enters the conversation, beef stops being entertainment. It becomes personal. While Soulja Boy was spiraling deeper into accusations, Rich, the kid, took a completely different approach. He didn't match the anger. He didn't argue point by point. He didn't even seem bothered. Instead, he laughed. Rather than denying the claims directly, Rich responded by mocking the situation, brushing it off like it wasn't serious enough to deserve a real response. At one point, his reaction echoed a famous 50 Cent moment. The kind of response that says, "Why am I even being mentioned?" That move changed everything, because now the dynamic shifted. Soulja Boy was emotional, heated, and clearly invested. Rich. The kid looked relaxed, unbothered, and amused. And on the internet, perception matters more than facts. By refusing to engage seriously, Rich turned Soulja's rant into content. Memes started spreading, clips were reposted. The focus wasn't on whether the accusations were true. It was on how angry Soulja looked compared to how calm everyone else seemed. To a lot of viewers, it felt like Rich wasn't fighting back. He was letting Soulja fight himself. And that's what made it worse. Because when someone is furious and the other person laughs, it doesn't calm the situation. It pours gasoline on it. And that reaction, or lack of one, pushed Soulja Boy even further, setting the stage for the final question everyone started asking next. By now, one thing was obvious. This wasn't really about child support. It wasn't about a live stream joke. And it definitely wasn't about one comment at a party. What pushed Soulja Boy over the edge was something deeper. Every insult he threw circled back to the same fear, being treated like someone who no longer mattered, someone whose name could be laughed at without consequences, someone the culture had moved past. That's why he kept saying the same things in different ways. You fell off. You need me. I was up before you. Those weren't random attacks, they were attempts to rewrite the power balance in real time. Meanwhile, the people he was going at weren't trying to win an argument. They were letting the moment play out, letting the internet decide, letting clips speak louder than explanations. And that contrast is what made the situation uncomfortable. One side was emotional, explosive, and demanding respect. The other side acted like the situation wasn't serious enough to deserve it. That's when viewers started asking the real question. Was Soulja Boy standing up for himself? Or was he reacting to the idea that his era, his influence, was being quietly dismissed? Because when someone feels forgotten, every joke sounds like an attack. And once that feeling sets in, there's no such thing as overreacting, only responding. When everything finally went quiet, one question was left hanging. Who actually won this? No songs dropped, no contracts were signed, no real closure ever came. What remained were clips, reactions, and opinions. Millions of people choosing sides based not on facts, but on how it all looked. Soulja Boy made one thing clear. He wasn't going to let his name be laughed at. To him, this was about respect, history, and reminding everyone where he believed he stood. On the other side, Blueface, Rich the Kid, and DDG treated the entire situation like content, something to joke about, something to move past without ever taking seriously. And that contrast is what made this moment stick, because in today's internet culture, anger doesn't always win, silence doesn't always lose, and being right doesn't always matter. Sometimes the only thing the internet remembers is who stayed calm and who didn't. So the real question isn't who was wrong or who was telling the truth, it's this. Was this a necessary stand for respect or a reaction that gave the joke exactly what it wanted? You decide.